Hey everyone, this is Devin Moreno, and today I want to talk about the vacant properties in Baltimore City. A lot of new investors coming into the city hear about these really cheap properties scattered everywhere, these vacants that are almost torn down and have a lot of damage and destruction from old fires of the past. So many people think that you can come here, easily buy a cheap property, and then get it and flip it into something a lot more expensive and then suddenly benefit off that. And to be honest, it almost feels like you should be able to do that. These vacants are scattered throughout the city. They're even bordering really nice neighborhoods and sometimes surrounded by little, let's say, middle income sort of areas. So there must be some value in them, right? Well, unfortunately, there are a lot of reasons that investors traditionally don't buy these homes. And I've covered that in another video that's actually pretty popular. But today I want to go into a vacant that I did buy, okay? So yeah, most investors don't buy them, and honestly, I don't buy vacants too often either. But there is one I bought, and there's a lot of reasons that I bought that property, and I wanted to go into it today. Okay, what made me buy this particular vacant property? Now, for anyone interested in why there's a lot of vacant properties all throughout Baltimore City, this is realistically a lot of historical context here. There's riots, a lot of systemic problems within the city, a lot of racism played in the key part in that as well. But that's all for the history books, and there are many great articles and books about that, but we're not going to focus on that. My channel is an investor channel, so I want to focus on not necessarily how the vacants came to be, but exactly how we can turn these vacants into something of value and either, yes, of course, profit from it yourself, but also revitalize the city in an attempt to remove these empty homes. So that's what I want to go into today. So keep that in mind as I explore these neighborhoods and also describe why it is I bought this particular vacant property. So for the reasons that investors don't typically buy vacants, I want to go into just a few of them, and I'm only going to touch upon it. Like I said, I've discussed this before, but essentially, number one is the neighborhoods are often very difficult to rent in. A lot of times the tenants often may not pay you or might have financial difficulties. There's a lot of different little bit of layers of problems that can come up with that. But two, the ARVs, and that's the most important part. An ARV is an after retail value. The problem is that after you buy the property and you renovate it, it won't be worth enough for all the money that you sunk into the property. So let's say the property, you bought it for $10,000 and you put $40,000 worth of repairs into it. Well, if the property is only worth $30,000 afterward because the neighborhood around it is only worth $30,000, doesn't matter. You could have put $100,000 into the property. And to be honest, in most vacants, you're probably going to put closer to $100,000 into the property, maybe even more, trying to fix it up. And then once you've spent over $100,000, your property is probably at best going to be worth $50,000. So it just isn't going to be worth it. You're going to end up trying to rent it to make your money back, and essentially it's going to take forever, probably years, even under best ideal circumstances. So most of the time, vacants are not a good idea. And like I said, I did a detailed breakdown of that in a different video. But let's go into the reasons that I looked at to buy this current vacant property that I own. So the vacant property I own is actually an end unit at the end of a block of non-vacant properties, and that's probably one of the big, most important keys. It's not like my vacant has lots of other vacants around it. You are going to see often wholesalers trying to sell you vacant properties where it's another vacant and board ups, and realistically what you're looking for, especially on Street View of Google Maps, is boarded up homes that are just surrounding your property. The problem is after you renovate it, a lot of people are not going to want to live in your property. And so you're going to have a hard time renting it afterward, and most likely your comps for your ARV is not going to do well. But in this case, my entire row of houses I bought on is actually already renovated and, most importantly, has current homeowners in it. And the fact that it is a largely homeowner-based community is great. That means they generally tend to take care of the property a little bit more. And so when I put tenants in there, they can hopefully adapt the ethics of the community that surrounds it. Even when I look across the street and down the street and many other different directions, you're seeing homes that are well taken care of, and that is what I'm ultimately looking for. I'm buying the last vacant property on a block, and so this means I can take advantage of the ARV of all the rest of the community and the ones that are already, renovated and brought up. Another thing to note is the fact that this part of the community is bordering another part of the community that is already even higher up than this one is. So in order to explain that, let me go ahead and go onto my map. So here we see a map of Baltimore City. Now, what's important to note here of all these colors is that this is basically a Baltimore City development map. You can actually find this on a Baltimore City website, and I can link it down below. But what you're seeing here is basically their numbers from 2017, and that's the latest numbers that we're gonna get for right now. And let's be honest, real estate doesn't change so drastically that matters that much. But you're seeing these in purple, or these A-class neighborhoods. You're seeing the medium price sales are gonna be the highest. There's going to be the least number of foreclosures. There's going to be the most number of owner occupied. So note, the cooler the color is, all right, as far as purple being the highest, then that means it's going to be higher price home sales and everything like that. Now, as we go down this into hotter colors, you're noticing the exact opposite, which is they're lower priced homes, a lot of foreclosures. I mean, of course, there's going to be more in the other ones because in these areas, in these worst areas, there's not really a lot of people living there to begin with to even have a foreclosure. But you're going to notice in the middle here is where we see the renovation work, all right? So a lot of people we see getting permits for $10,000 worth of permits, all right? We see a majority of them are kind of close to these A neighborhoods. Okay, and you can still find quite a number of them, at least in these green and yellow. And that's what I want to focus on, okay? So when we look at this map, let's focus on the kind of lighter yellow color and this greenish color. So let's go ahead and scroll back up, all right? And obviously in these redder areas, that is where you're going to find your vacant properties. There's lots of them on East Baltimore, lots of them on this side of Baltimore, but there's not going to be as many on the northeast and this central area of Baltimore. If you guys saw my house hack video, which is in the link below, I show a lot of the areas around here and why you want to invest in them for your house hacks, which are primary residence style investing properties. But you're going to really see more of the vacants and such on these reddish areas. So what we're looking for are the reddish areas that are bordering some of these blue areas or maybe these yellowish areas. And that, all right, now this is a very, very, just so you're aware, simplistic way of looking at it. So don't certainly say, oh, it's in a yellow area, so I'm going to buy the house. But this is basically a good start. So when I go down into this map, all right, we're seeing all of these areas here. Now I've bought homes in Bel Air, Edison, which you can see it's, kind of, there are some vacants, but for the most part in these bright yellow areas, you're not going to see as many. And then the one I want to talk about today is actually over here in Edmondson Village. So in this area is where I bought a property. And I actually specifically bought it in this neighborhood, this Edgewood neighborhood. Now you notice it's a little bit more orange. That's obviously because we're gonna be up and coming on this neighborhood. I'm hoping that this area bleeds into this one a little bit. You can see where this kind of path is going. So Edmondson Village is actually not bad for a rental market. There's a lot of homeowners there. There's a lot of, a lot less vacants. If you're gonna be looking for projects where you're the last vacant on a block, you're gonna be looking in places like this. Maybe even places like up here, you're seeing the same kind of development. So just keep that in mind when you're actually looking for a property. This is the kind of thing I'm looking for. And of course, like I said, my house was the last one on a block that has already renovated homes throughout the entire area. So also on that Baltimore City website, you're going to find other maps like this. Now, I'm not going to go into every single one of this. Obviously, that would be a little crazy, but you're going to see these vacant building maps. All right. So once again, we can see in my area, it's kind of like ish in this area. Realistically, there's not a lot of vacants. So that's the best part about it. We can see here there's 4% to 10% vacants in the entire community. Remember, I'm in this area here, so that's good. So that means combined with that other map, we can see okay, there's not a lot of vacants here. So if I had invested here, then I'd probably be swarmed and surrounded by vacants. So once again, that is these areas: Harlem Park, Sandtown, Easter, all of this. You're going to be totally surrounded by vacants. Anything around here, once again, totally surrounded by vacants. So like I said, if you want this map, it is public on Baltimore City. It's a Baltimore City development map. You can literally just type that in and you can see for yourself. Now, on these vacant properties, you're looking at doing a ton of renovation. I'm not gonna lie, it's like everything, all right? Let's be real. You're talking about replacing subflooring, new joists, new roofs, new HVAC, plumbing, everything. I mean, I had to repair brick and mortar work. A lot of it was just falling apart. I literally had a hole in my house, a giant gaping hole where some of the bedrooms should be. We had to repair the floors upstairs. We had to repair literally the entire staircase. We had to replace all of that. We had to redo the basement, a lot of the basement areas where we had to, basically clean it out, repaint the walls. I mean, it's a mess. And actually, you can even see in these photos that we did a lot of demolition as well, clearing out all the walls. We had to install a brand new kitchen. Everything is brand new. So these are not projects that a new investor should be getting into. And that is something I really want to stress in this video. If you're a new investor and you have no experience in renovation, I would not recommend getting into one of these. They take forever, probably about 6 months to complete the project into its entirety, and that's if you're pretty good at it. So if you're like an absolute expert, you might be able to do it faster in like 3 months, let's say. But this was a 3-bed, 1-bath. Well, it was originally a 4-bed, 1-bath, sorry. So now it's a 3-2. That's what we converted to, a 3, 2.5. And this property was worth $150,000 after renovation. We bought it for $20K, realistically like $22K, and then we put at least about $80,000 worth of work in it. So when you do the refinance in order to get the bank to pay your hard money lender back, remember, if you can do a project like this, oftentimes you're gonna have a hard money lender, because when I started this whole thing, I had no money in the bank. All right, so I needed hard money in order to fund everything. So in order to get an actual bank to pay my hard money back, they would only do up to 80%. All right, they'll give you a loan of 80% of the ARV. Most of the time, it's actually 75%, which if you're doing the calculations, it's a little bit over $100,000 on a $150,000 home. So that allows me to pay my lender back. So with that type of math, it really, really works. Now, how did I find a property for $22,000? Well, I mean, the thing had like a tree growing through it, so which we actually had to cut down and do all the yard and such. So this is a scope of a project that I would not recommend on your first one. In fact, this was my 4th house that I did, so definitely would not recommend this to new investors. I actually had a mentor guide me throughout this process. I found my mentor by going to a realtor. Essentially, he is a realtor, and I had him with me when I bought the first couple homes, and then we eventually partnered later on. Now, for those of you who are interested in where I got the property, this is a wholesaler deal. So a wholesaler had this one listed. They just have email listings sent out, and I bought it from the wholesaler using the hard money. It's actually a very easy closing because I can say I can buy the house cash. Wholesalers want cash. They don't want to hear that, oh yeah, I'll bank finance it. Honestly, a vacant property, you can't bank finance anyway. You actually need a livable structure in order for a bank to want to finance it. So you have no choice but to use cash or hard money or private money in this case. So just letting you all know how exactly I bought the deal and how I found it. That's realistically it, and I just ran the numbers as such. Now, if you're interested in a full breakdown of this property, I will absolutely do one in a video coming up. As you all know, I do the video breakdowns on a lot of different properties here in Baltimore City and how I analyze them for seeing if they are cash flowing deals. So that's all for this video. Let me know if you have any questions regarding this vacant property that I bought, and I will answer them in the comment section below.